It's time for Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob Mario and David Welch.
Good morning, and thank you, Cliff. We appreciate you being here with us this morning as part of our Talk Radio WRNR listening audience. This first segment is brought to you by Miller Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Route 9 east of Martinsburg, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. This is going to be a busy first half hour, especially, and maybe the first 45 minutes, too.
And I would say an important half hour.
Seismic event happening yesterday, David, when Menace Ketchum resigned as Supreme Court Justice rather than go through an impeachment hearing.
Menace Ketchum was elected to the West Virginia State Supreme Court in 2008 to a 12-year term as a Democrat, back when we elected them by party. Alan Lawfrey, the one who is now going to we'll be talking about his impeachment proceedings, was elected, I think, it was a Republican, actually, so this has sort of a bipartisan nature to it. There's a lot of moving parts going on here, but the one thing that was stunning yesterday was the resignation of Menace Ketchum on a handwritten note to the governor. I saw it online, just a handwritten note. And, when you leave the building as a state Supreme Court justice with a handwritten note, there's got to be something going on that we probably don't know about yet. Justices just don't do that.
The resignation is effective close of business July 27, and I think most of us thought Justice Lawfrey would be the first one that would go down. Ketchum, indeed, is the first one, and we're told that this, even if you're thinking about Lawfrey, this might not be the end of it. There could be as many as four of the justices who could be in trouble. Maybe all five.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing as well. There's a lot of rumors circulating around. I've heard some of the rumors. I'm not sure we're going to talk about the rumors today. We'll have to make that judgment in terms of what's being whispered about in terms of Menace Ketchum. But there's something big going on. And as I said before, people just don't do that when they're an elected official, write a handwritten note, say they're out in 2 weeks, unless there's something on him that he's very frightened about getting out.
In the public, right?
Exactly. So there's just no doubt about it.
We'll be joined on the phone by two members of our Eastern Panhandle delegation momentarily. Speaker Pro Tem John Overington, who serves on Judiciary, and Democrat Jason Barrett. We'll bring them in just a second here. Attorney Joe Ferretti from Joe Ferretti Law Offices is with us in studio. Joe, in the legal community, just how seismic of an event is this resignation by Justice Ketchum?
Rob and Dave, it doesn't get any bigger than this. As a practicing attorney, this is the highest court in the state of West Virginia. This is the court of last resort if you have an appeal that you need to bring up on a criminal or civil case in the justice system here in West Virginia. And when you have the leaders in that court, the people you look to exercise judgment and decide your cases and determine in many respects your client's fate, whether that be in terms of their freedom or their financial status in the community. You have to look to those folks and understand that there's a certain element of trust that's required in the courts. And if we don't have that, and I think the foundation of our court system here in West Virginia has been badly shaken, it is seismic, and it doesn't get any bigger.
Let me speak to the politics of that. Joe speaks to the legal community's view of this. Politically, I think this just erodes trust like you can't believe in the public, because the public needs to believe in the judicial system. The public needs to believe that those men and women on the Supreme Court are impartial, that they're fair, that they're without, the influence of money. Those are the kinds of things we have to believe in. And when we stop believing that politically, it's not good.
Well, many times, Dave, we've sat down with clients, my former partners and I, and when we had cases that were going to the Supreme Court on appeal, and some of those cases involved very large sums of money, because we do civil work. It was interesting. We'd sit down with the clients and we'd break it down. Okay, here's how we think the justices are going to receive your case, how they look at these issues, how they might even possibly vote. And you look at it politically in some respects. You also look at it in terms of precedent and what they've done in the past, those individual justices. And when you have a situation now where justices are being accused of impropriety, of taking state money, public funds, and using it for their own personal gain or good, that would be even a more difficult discussion to have with your client.
It's really an abuse of power.
It is, and as well, I'm sure we'll talk about this morning. That's one of the standards for impeachment, and clearly with a resignation yesterday, late in the game, a handwritten note, hurriedly written, containing just a couple sentences, addressed to the governor, saying, "Hey, I'm out of here," on the eve of hearings, which are supposed to begin today. You have to wonder just how bad it is.
Let's go to the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line and bring in Speaker Pro Tem and Judiciary Committee member Delegate John Overington, the longest-serving member of the House of Delegates, concluding his final term in office. John, good morning. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Rob, and all the folks at WRNR.
Thank you, sir. And also with us via telephone, Democratic Delegate Jason Barrett, who represents basically the city of Martinsburg. Jason, good morning. Thank you for being with us as well.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, John, it's looking to me, and we'll just talk about the Alan Lawfrey situation first, and then we'll go to the Menace Ketchum situation. But today, the Judiciary Committee meets. What will they be doing in that meeting today?
Well, Dave, the first thing, and Rob, the first thing we will be doing is establishing a procedure that we're going to be following. That, as far as the actual witnesses, we'll have the auditor there to help us with some of the financial concerns that have been raised on travel and other things. This is a new process for us. We've never dealt with a Supreme Court justice impeachment. We look at this extremely seriously. I mean, this is something where the voters have elected these folks, and we will be overturning that decision the voters have made. So it's something that we will be looking at very cautiously, but very carefully. As you pointed out, there's a lot of turmoil on the court right now, and this is, as was pointed out, the highest court in the state, and they need to have the perception of total, complete integrity. So that those will be some of the factors that we're looking at. At the same time, we want to make sure that this is completely transparent. This process will be broadcast live starting at 10 o'clock on over the internet, so the public can look at this, see what we're doing. Just follow the process very carefully.
Delegate John Overington with us via phone. Delegate Jason Barrett is with us as well. Jason, how did you find out about the resignation yesterday? And with this resignation, I do believe this also allows for the voters to select at least one of the next justices now, correct?
That is correct, and I received a text message and several group texts with a lot of my colleagues in the legislature, and that's where I first heard about it, was in one of those group texts. But Rob, you're exactly right that Justice Ketchum has finally done the right thing. I think many of us have heard this for several weeks now that this was going to happen. So he eventually did do the right thing. His actions and Justice Lawfrey's actions are completely inexcusable. But you're right, this does allow the voters of West Virginia to pick his replacement.
Jason, there are a lot of rumors going around about Menace Ketchum. Are you at liberty to share with us any of those rumors that you may have heard in the Capitol and the discussions that are going on with you and your colleagues?
A little bit. One of the things that I heard, and again, it's a rumor, it's an accusation. I don't have any idea whether it's true or not. But the one accusation that I've heard a couple of times is that he hired a grammar coach or a proofreader for his book that apparently he's written. I don't know of the book. I've never read it, of course, but the state paid for this proofreader or this grammar coach, and that the proceeds of the book, when it was sold, actually went to him personally. Now, again, that's an accusation that I've heard that's been floating around for several weeks or maybe even 2 months at this point. So I don't know if that's part of the U.S. Attorney's investigation or not. But the other things that he's accused of are kind of in line with what Justice Lawfrey is being accused of, is it using the office for personal gain, whether that's through using state vehicles or other things. So The one difference that I see is that it appears that he hasn't lied about it the way that Justice Lawfrey is being accused of.
Did Justice Ketchum, as I understand it, attempt to make a repayment of some of the monies that were misused? Was that part of Justice Ketchum and apologized for it?
That is my understanding, and the other part of that is that that was not put on either their tax returns. So I don't know. I think from what I understood, he has gone back and made that right with the IRS. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I've heard.
Hiring a grammar coach to help you with a book does not sound to me as if it would rise to that level of impeachment or the decision to step away from the bench. Am I wrong about that, Joe, or anyone from a legal or political standpoint? Can you address that?
It's not exactly the smoking gun is what you're saying.
It doesn't seem to, I mean, it seems to be like a speeding ticket to me.
I think standing alone, I would agree with your statement, Dave. Now, I believe that there's some accusations about him taking furniture home himself. Okay, there's an issue, I believe, with a grandfather clock that was state property.
Well, this is turning into Furniture Gate, isn't it?
Well, and it speaks to the issue, which is, I believe, if I could read into this, Justice Ketchum perhaps determined that it was going to be difficult to distinguish his situation from Alan Lawfrey's in terms of furniture, in terms of private gain and use of the public vehicles and things of that nature. Once you go down that path and you see that Alan Lawfrey is facing both judicial complaints and federal indictments, and you see your own situation as being difficult to distinguish from that, then the writing's on the wall.
John, you're on the Judiciary Committee. Have you seen all the evidence against Justice Ketchum, and is there anything that we're missing and haven't brought up to this point?
No, I think that's what our meetings this morning and later on in the week is all about, for us to get the documentation, get it from the auditor's office to make sure that we want to make sure we have the facts, that they are documented, and that they will be held up when this, if it goes to the Senate. So that's what we're going to be looking at. That's what we're going to be going over this morning and later on this week.
Joe?
Jason and John, I have a question for both of you. In addition to some of the individual behaviors that are being reviewed on a case-by-case basis with these justices, is there a larger issue, and I don't know if you can speak to this yet, but is there a larger issue with the legislature in terms of the management of the Supreme Court budget? Because I've been reading some reports and I've been hearing that the legislature is very much concerned with a situation where at one point the Supreme Court had a $29 million surplus in their budget, and it was reduced down to a few $100,000 in a very short period of time. The thought being that the Supreme Court felt it necessary to do that to not have the legislature come in and start trying to manage that budget. Is there an overriding concern about the overall management of the Supreme Court budget?
Well, Joe, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I wanted to address this morning. That's a real problem for me if that is the case, and I think that if that is the case, then we need to look at holding all five justices accountable for that because you're right. There was $29 million in the bank. They spent that money down because of the increased scrutiny that they felt was coming from the legislature over their budget within the past couple of years, having very tough budget years, that the legislature looks and the finance committees look wherever they can to find some money to be able to fill the budget gap without raising taxes. And I think that they were really expecting us to look at that, and that's why they spent that money down. And if that is the case, we need to look at all five justices and see what each of their roles were in spending down that money, just in order to protect their budget of nearly $140 million annually, to protect that, so the legislature wouldn't question that and really bring that out in the public's view.
And to add to what Jason said, there has been a hesitancy to have a lot of scrutiny, I think, with the Supreme Court budget just because they were a separate branch of government. And I think that has contributed to the idea that we wanted to have on the ballot a constitutional amendment to help correct that, to provide oversight. I think that they sort of felt nobody was watching them, the 5 justices felt nobody was watching them, and I think that they did things that they would not have done if they had known that what they approved would have to be accepted and voted on by the legislature.
John and Jason, as members of the House of Delegates, and John as member of the Judiciary Committee, will the public know everything about this Supreme Court investigation before it's concluded? Will we know all the reasons why Menace Ketchum resigned? And if there are more, will we know all the reasons why those justices, if indeed they do resign? Or will some of these have the, and Joe, tell me if this is even possible as our legal expert here, will some of these resignations have something in them that says, I'll resign provided this information isn't released, or with the understanding that this information is never released?
I'll say that'd be improper.
Joe says that would be improper. John or Jason, are you aware, are there any of those kind of negotiations going on right now?
I'm not aware of any, but I think that part of the reason for the resignation might have been exactly what you're describing, that some of these things may have been personal, some of them they may not have wanted to have this dragged through the public limelight, and that may have been a factor for Justice Ketchum's resigning. He just didn't want to have to go through this whole process of scrutiny, and a lot of it may just have been, his travel expenses, and if you knew what the outcome was going to be, just, ending it before it got started.
John, are you speculating right now, or do you know something that might be brewing and behind the Ketchum resignation?
No, I'm just trying to figure out why he resigned, and the way he did it the day before we start the hearings showed that he just did not want to go through this process. And, I don't know all the factors, but I think he just didn't want to have that dragged through the public limelight, especially when the outcome may have been fairly certain.
Jason, what do you think the odds are? I mean, if you want to put odds on it, I could throw this out to everyone, but at some point in time, if this impeachment comes to the floor of the House, I'm going to guess that Alan Lawfrey at some point in time says, I don't want to go through this, and also resigns. Anybody have a thought on that? I don't know the man. So
predicted several weeks ago, and I think Senator Blair strongly disagreed with me, and as of right now, he's right. But I don't know. The further we get into this, I don't know that whether Justice Lawfrey resigns or not. I think he's indicated that he's taken a pretty hard stance that he's not going to resign. So I think it would probably surprise everyone a little bit if he were to resign. It's clearly the right thing to do. It's what he needs to do. And he's clearly not putting the best interest of the people of West Virginia first. He's putting his political future and his own ego ahead of the people of West Virginia at this point.
Ketchum's resignation also means that there will be an election in November for at least one state Supreme Court justice. I highly doubt that anyone was preparing a campaign, right, for this November. I don't think there were any of them that were up on the November ballot this year. So there are going to be someone new is going, or a lot of people, who knows, will emerge as candidates now for this race. At the same time, on the ballot will be the ballot measure to curtail their budget pattern from the past.
I think for the very reason you just stated, there will be a lot of people who line up because if you're faced with the prospect of a 16-month campaign for a Supreme Court seat in West Virginia, you're talking about millions of dollars potentially that you have to raise or spend. If you're talking about a campaign that's going to take a couple months, maybe for more people it becomes financially possible for them to engage in a campaign because you just can't possibly spend that kind of money in that short period of time. So perhaps more people will line up to run for the seat. And I'm also hearing that the governor is going to convene the Judicial Vacancy Committee and try to do an appointment to have somebody in the seat when the Supreme Court goes back into session in September. So there will be a temporary person in that seat for a couple months.
And that person would have, I would imagine, an advantage because they would be more or less running as the incumbent, or a disadvantage because they've just gotten appointed by an unpopular governor.
Well,
fair question. Yeah,
I mean that we saw that play out here in Eastern Panhandle with my former law partner who defeated an appointment.
Real quick. I think what the right thing for the governor to do would be to appoint someone that was only going to serve out that very short term and allow the people, and not to give anyone an advantage like that.
I'd go to Joe Ferretti for that job. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Joe says no.
Joe says no.
No interest.
The seat expires.
What are you doing this fall, Joe?
The seat expires in 2020.
I'll be right here.
Jason, I got John's opinion on this. I want to get yours as well. Will any information that's known, and if it involves misuse of taxpayer dollars, is there any chance any of this information doesn't get out in some type of, for lack of a better way of putting it, Joe, non-disclosure agreement?
Well, Rob, to answer your question, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity. Any information that the legislature uncovers, whether that's through the Judiciary Committee or the full legislature, any information that we uncover, the people of West Virginia have an absolute right to know. And I can assure you that many members of the legislature will make sure that it becomes public knowledge. But Dave, to go back to your question about in no one preparing for this race, I don't know that I'd agree that no one is preparing. I think if you look back on the timeline of this the Supreme Court scandal starting in the September-October time frame of 2017, the Speaker of the House decides not to run in 2018 in January. And then he announces that he's a potential candidate. So, I think he very well may be prepared for an election this November.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much for your time. Delegate Jason Barrett, Delegate John Overington, much appreciated. Have a great day, gentlemen.
All right, thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks.
We'll continue our discussion about this situation. Justice Metis Ketchum resigning, others under investigation, Justice Lafferty under indictment, with another member of the Judiciary Committee coming out of the 8:30 news break, and Delegate Riley Moore will join us. Joe, you're welcome to stick around through the Riley Moore segment, too, if you have time.
Yeah, I can do that.
Use your legal expertise here.
Do you want a second of a little irony? Dennis the Menace was written by a guy named Hank Ketchum.
It's 8:30.
Menace Ketchum.
CBS News special report. President Trump says he got what he wanted at the NATO summit in Brussels. After lashing out at allied nations again today over defense spending, he says,
We will go to much higher than 2% into the future, but right now we're getting people up to 2%, and that'll take place over a fairly short period of time, a short number of years.
There is no confirmation on specifics, and French President Emmanuel Macron denies member nations have changed their previous financial commitments. CBS's Major Garrett on the confusion surrounding Mr. Trump's announcement.
It's been a very hectic couple of hours here at NATO headquarters. The NATO spokesman said there was a special meeting called. Those in the room told wire service reporters it was an emergency meeting. The topic, the future of NATO defense spending, and around it, veiled threats from the President of the United States that the United States might withdraw from NATO, though that was never explicitly mentioned.
CBS News Special Report. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. Authorities say she went off to get a tan while high on opiates and prescription drugs and left 3 kids unattended while she did. 38-year-old Michelle Klub of Martinsburg could go to jail for 15 years as a result. West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey is warning people to be wary of unsolicited calls from anyone claiming to represent the Social Security Administration. The Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division has recently received reports of impersonators using various excuses to steal Social Security numbers and other sensitive information. The imposter will often ask consumers to verify personal information, including their Social Security number, to replace a Social Security card, fix an issue with their online account, process a cost of living adjustment, or rectify benefits that have been underpaid and need adjustment. Morrissey said the imposters will use fear tactics to get what they want, so just don't fall for it. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
We've got a fine stretch of midsummer weather here for the Eastern Panhandle that'll carry us through the weekend, probably into the early parts of next week. Chances for rain increase just a little bit about Monday into Tuesday, but we are dry and sunny here for today and tomorrow and a good part of Saturday. Looking at highs a few degrees cooler than yesterday, we'll be at 84 or so for the afternoon, light northeasterly winds. Overnight with clear skies, the low back to the lower 60s. Tomorrow, sunny skies, southeasterly winds, temperatures up a couple degrees, 86 for the high. And then on Saturday and Sunday, highs in the lower 90s each day with sunshine, but maybe a late day thundershower. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio, WRNR.
What words come to mind when you think of Honda? Reliable should be one. Fun, that's a good one. How about stunning, comfortable, refined? I could go on, but there is one word that sums up every Honda. Quality. Because Honda was KBB.com's 2018 Best Overall Brand. And we worked hard to earn that honor. Because without quality, nothing else you call a Honda matters. So whether you choose the sizzling Civic, acclaimed Accord, adventurous HR-V, fearless fit, awesome Odyssey, conscientious Clarity, remarkable Ridgeline, polished Pilot, or sporty CR-V, you know you're getting Honda quality that's truly unmatched. In fact, we make sure of it. So visit your local Honda dealer and get into KBB.com's 2018 Best Overall Brand.
Miller Honda, south of Winchester, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. www.mymillerhonda.com.
Based on 2018 Brand Image Awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit KBB.com for more information.
Simply free e-checking from City National Bank. Perfect if you want basic checking with no monthly service fees or balance requirements. Stop by any of our 7 Eastern Panhandle locations or visit us online at bankatcity.com. City National Bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Matt Miller with a local look at local sports on Talk Radio WRNR, 106.5 FM and 740 AM.
Hi, honey.
Where are you?
I've been in line at the post office for the last 30 minutes.
Why are you at the post office? It'll take you all day.
Where else do I go to ship my packages or drop FedEx off at?
Honey, going postal is way faster, has less lines, and friendly service.
Where's going postal?
It's right in the Common Shopping Center in Martinsburg. They'll ship your packages quickly, and you can avoid the lines.
Going postal should be your first choice for all your shipping needs. Going postal, the Commons, Martinsburg. L.A. Roberts is Berkeley County's oldest jeweler, where every season is new and exciting. In fact, new is old school to us, and though it's nothing new, our old traditions like exceptional service, quality, and value maintain L.A. Roberts Jewelers as the old master among so many new kids on the block. Whether you are a newcomer or part of the old guard, entrust all your fine jewelry needs to L.A. Roberts, Old World Jewelers for a new age, in historic downtown Martinsburg. This segment of Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave brought to you by the Joe Ferretti Law Office. Joe, tell us about your new law office, man. You're the sponsor of this segment.
Yeah, we're now a month and a half old.
Do you have job openings over there?
You need a talk show host. Dave wants to know if you need a co-host when you're in court.
Boy, I could use some help. I've taken on a lot more work than I anticipated with the departure of Judge David Hammer, and it's working out fine. I'm just once I get things ironed out, it's going to be good. But I just got to get through this.
Sure, it'll be good. You get your salary and his when it all gets worked out.
Well,
right?
that is one advantage. You don't have to split the profits. Yeah, but I'm learning that.
But you can't take on as much work though either.
No,
so,
you can't. So yeah, it is a situation that you have to monitor too. You don't want to overextend yourself.
Well, I'm getting mixed signals now, Joe. Are you telling people who are hearing you and saying I need to call Joe for some legal advice that they shouldn't call right now?
Oh no, I'll still take your calls.
Okay,
so why don't you hire Rob and I? We'll do one job together. We'll split it up.
I'll have to think about what I could have you do.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have any squirrels in my office. So.
You can't get away from that. Did you see Savon's post on Facebook yesterday?
I did.
The murderous.
The murderous, yes.
And Savon Hunter is our intern this summer, and might I say, doing all-star caliber work. Savon, good morning. Thank you for being with us
this
summer.
I had a friend of mine at the gym today tell me I've been getting way too liberal lately. He's very much a conservative, and he said, man, your politics, you're getting way too liberal on me. He goes, but I listen to the show every day. Because like the squirrel story, I about drove off the road. It was so funny. I love that stuff.
We saw the one Facebook post where the lady said she was going to get her oil changed, and she was laughing so hard in the car, people were looking at her like she was crazy. So there's that. 263-6540 and 263-6586, our telephone numbers as the show continues. Another member of the Judiciary Committee joins us right now, Delegate Riley Moore. Riley, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the WVU Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line, sir.
Good morning, everybody. How are y'all doing?
Riley, am I getting too liberal?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
We're sitting here and we're wondering, Riley, it seems the evidence that's been presented is okay. Some of it David mentioned seems like the equivalent of a speeding ticket, yet Menace Ketchum yesterday abruptly writes a handwritten note and resigns. It seems like we're missing something here. You're on the Judiciary Committee. Have you seen something the rest of us have missed, or have you seen stuff that we're just not taking seriously enough as we look at it?
Or seen something you can't talk about?
Well,
Good third choice.
I'll talk to what I can talk about. And so what the Judiciary Committee is going to undertake and look at specifically coming up starting today through this weekend is the vehicle issue. And this is public, if you look at the legislative auditor's report, really where Ketchum gets into trouble here is where he had used a vehicle for about 4 years, 4.5 years, to commute back and forth from his home in Huntington to the state capitol, but then also used the vehicle for different trips and the like, and then charged over $12,000 to a gas card that he had been issued. Now, where he gets into trouble here, and as he knows, this was the topic of conversation that's going to take place here this weekend, is that not only is it a violation of the Ethics Act, this fringe benefit was also not reported on his federal taxes, on his W-2s either. So that, I think, is where he runs into issues, and certainly $12,000 on a gas card is not a small amount of money for certainly a state like West Virginia, where people like people in West Virginia are certainly struggling.
And we are aware of that situation, and we certainly didn't mean to imply that was the equivalent of a speeding ticket. But there were a few other things that were brought up that we mentioned wouldn't be something that I better resign right now before people find out about that. I know there are other things out there as well that are swirling around, and because they're rumors, I don't want to give them the light of day right now. But there are rumors involving personal things that are floating out there. And we're wondering, are you aware, has anybody in the legislature maybe said to him, look, here's what we've seen, here's what we've got on you, and he maybe looks at that and goes, well, I better get out of here?
Well, I think part of it, though, is we're going to be calling witnesses specifically as it relates to this vehicle issue today and through Saturday. Perhaps he doesn't want to deal with that. And I can't talk about what we're receiving in terms of, and this isn't necessarily a court case, but, Joe Ferretti would be familiar, what we're receiving in terms of discovery, which isn't really the term that you use here, but the documents that we're receiving, there's certainly some additional information there that is troubling, that we're going to certainly vet all the way through.
I'm hearing that some witnesses may no-show this hearing. Is there any type of hammer that you have, the committee has, for any witnesses who decide to no-show this?
Well, we can certainly try to use Kanawha County Court to try to force them to show, but unfortunately, there's not a contempt of court lever here in terms of an impeachment proceeding in the state of West Virginia. So there is limited leverage
power
that we have to compel
Joe
to testify.
Joe Ferretti, if a witness testifies in front of the West Virginia House regarding these specific subjects, what happens? Let's say Menace Ketchum did decide to testify at this. Would that then affect him in a criminal court if he went to testify again in a situation like that? Well, in terms of, what is that called?
Well, you talk about double jeopardy?
Double jeopardy, maybe?
Well, I think the issue here, and this is what's always mystified me about Alan Lawfrey's situation, we know he's got federal indictments sitting out there, and yet he's going to potentially run out the string here in terms of an impeachment process before the West Virginia House, and ultimately the Senate's going to then vote on articles of impeachment. I'm sure the most interested observer of that whole process is going to be the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia. And so you have to wonder why Alan Lawfrey would go through this process and have all this evidence vetted, have witnesses testify, and have the U.S. Attorney sitting down there watching the proceedings.
Does it disqualify any of his testimony in terms of self-incrimination?
Oh, no. I don't know if Lawfrey can, and I guess Riley Moore is indicating here this morning. Riley, correct me if I'm wrong. You all don't have subpoena power for this impeachment process.
Well, we can certainly we have the ability to subpoena, but
you have to go through the Kanawha County prosecuting attorney.
Well, no, we can issue subpoenas just the same way that they can in Congress, but we don't have the same legal mechanism that compels them to do so, or this happens.
Okay, you don't have the contempt.
Exactly. We don't have contempt. And so we can, as the chairman's indicated, Chairman John Schott, we can work through the courts to try to compel them to show up, but that's a bit of a lengthy process. And what I'd also mention, to Joe's point, look at the A. James Mansion case where we had impeachment proceedings, and a lot of those findings were then referred to the Kanawha County court down there for them to do with the evidence and everything, whatever they want, which they can then decide what's come out of these impeachment proceedings to then go ahead and press charges. But we do have the ability to refer this to a state judge.
And Rob, to your point about what could happen with testimony, witnesses, and whether even Menace Ketchum or Alan Lawfrey testify, I understand this testimony will be under oath. So it's sworn testimony, and it can be used in any subsequent proceeding.
Riley, are you surprised that somebody, a friend of Alan Lawfrey, someone who he might have worked with or been a law partner with, some person he knows well, or someone from the legislature hasn't picked up the phone and called him and just said, Alan, really, spare your family, spare the embarrassment, spare the state, the whole process, do what Menace Ketchum did, and just resign?
Those conversations have absolutely taken place. I can tell you that as a matter of fact. And he wants to see this thing all the way through. It seems like, unfortunately.
Does he firmly believe he's innocent?
I mean, that's almost megalomaniac, kind of behavior. It seems like to me.
Well, anyone who's dealt with him, in my view, he any given time feels like he's the smartest man in the room, and I think that he believes that he did not do anything wrong, and he would like to prove that he did not, even though it's pretty clear.
If he's the smartest man in the room, can't he read the law and see that he misused vehicles?
Right. Or, I mean, if you want to go from there, the federal charges of witness tampering and obstruction of justice, which are pretty serious felonies, it boggles the mind.
Riley,
sure.
When do you guys get together today? When does this begin?
What time did we start? I got to check my calendar, actually.
That's all right.
Off the top of my head, I don't have my calendar.
I think it's 10 o'clock, according to what John Overington said.
That's true. And while you're there, Joe, in regards to self-incrimination, Delegate Espinosa sent a part of the state code to me via text, and I asked you to translate it basically from the legalese. What does it mean?
Yeah, Section 415, it appears, of the 415A of the West Virginia Code seems to indicate, and I just did a quick read of this, so for those lawyers out there listening, forgive me if I'm wrong, but it appears to say that in any proceeding that is convened by the legislature, a witness cannot claim that they are to be excused from testimony because the testimony may incriminate themselves. In other words, there's not a Fifth Amendment right at the state level.
You cannot plead the Fifth in this at all, because you don't have there is no double jeopardy, because this is not a court of law. So that idea is certainly something that's not true. But to your point, though, on Lawfrey, and I don't know if you'll hear this or not, but I mean, for the sake of the state of West Virginia, please resign. I would urge him to do so to save us the embarrassment of having to go through this on a national level, and just resign and go through the criminal proceedings.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Riley. I mean, because if it's the financial part of it, it's the time that it takes of a whole lot of people doing something. They could be doing something else, and we've got a lot of problems in this state that need to be solved by all of you who we've elected to solve them. And the last thing you guys need to really be doing is to be bogged down with an impeachment proceeding against someone where I can tell you, I can read the last chapter of this book. I think we all can. It just seems, I don't want to, indict or
he's already been indicted, so you
convict him before he has his chance. And I get all of that, but come on, this is crazy.
And he does have a young family, and if he wants to see this thing the whole way through, he will go to federal prison.
That'll
very
be
likely.
Riley, are you considering any of the other justices at this time?
We are looking at all of them. We are looking at everybody. We need to make sure that the Supreme Court, highest court in the land, is completely swept clean, and we're going to look at every justice. And I am by no means implying that there's wrongdoing by all of them, but our job right now, it's incumbent upon us as elected officials to restore confidence in the people, back into the people of the state of West Virginia with the Supreme Court. And that is what we have to do right now.
I keep hearing that there's 4 of the 5 that are probably really in the hot seat, and the 5th one, who doesn't seem to be in a seat quite as hot as the others, is Justice Walker. But when you look at her, she, I think, spent $130,000 to refurbish her office. Right? I mean, I think that was the figure.
Whatever the number was.
So is the new highest standard of the court now is that, well, I only spent $130,000 to refurbish my office. Is that now the new standard?
Justice Davis spent $500,000.
Right. But this was after Justice Benjamin had already spent even more than that on that office. And then Justice Walker came in and added another 6-figure renovation to that on top of what Justice Benjamin had just spent. So, Riley, I thank you very much for your time this morning, and good luck at 10 o'clock. Keep us informed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Delegate Riley Moore on the WVU Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line at 8:52. It's a good day in West Virginia, and it's a bad day. It's a good day because corruption was rooted out ultimately. It's a bad day because corruption was committed at the highest level where trust from the public is most key at the Supreme Court level, Joe.
Well, a couple things. First of all, I just got word from a fellow attorney who I know very well, consider a good friend, and he would know better than I because he does more criminal work than I do. But he said that you can't waive your Fifth Amendment right, and the state by statute can't take that away. It is a constitutional right when you think about it. So the individual could be summoned to the hearing and simply would take the Fifth. His appearance would be mandated, but the fact that he would be asked to give testimony potentially that would incriminate him or herself, that would not be allowed if the Fifth Amendment is invoked. So while the state statute seems to indicate that you can't, I think a constitutional right is going to trump that, and no pun intended. And I think that's where that will happen. And I'm sure one of these justices, the last thing they want to do is go before a legislative committee or the House as a whole, a committee, an impeachment, and raise their hand and then say, I'm going to take the Fifth Amendment. I mean,
sure.
That's.
But we trump constitutional rights all the time in this country. I have the right to bear arms, but not within 500 feet of a school.
Well, it's true. There's limitations that have to be narrowly tailored and rationally related to the situation. And, of course, the state has an interest in soliciting this truthful information from these witnesses so we can get to the bottom of it. But, I mean, we're talking about somebody's potentially their liberty interest here, which is going to trump just about everything when you think about it.
You would think.
Okay, yeah.
Would help.
I mean, somebody, as Delegate Moore said on the air, somebody could be going to jail here. So that's going to be sacrosanct if they take that Fifth Amendment. But the other backstory I want to tell you about this, which is kind of, we have to remember how Menace Ketchum came into this job in 2008. He ran in a Democratic primary with Margaret Workman and with Elliott Spike Maynard. And Maynard came in third and lost his seat on the Supreme Court in 2008, remember, because there were photographs circulating of him sitting in a bar in Monaco with Don Blankenship.
That's
while
right.
While Massey Energy.
I still remember that.
Yeah, while Massey Energy had a case pending before the Supreme Court for millions of dollars, we had a Supreme Court justice partying with the president of Massey Energy in Monaco, and that cost Elliott Spike Maynard his seat. That's how Menace Ketchum got this job.
So Menace Ketchum, in a way, look, Menace Ketchum came in as the clean reform candidate then in that race, right? I'm going to clean things up, and I'm going to make sure that kind of corruption doesn't exist. And here he is, many years, 10 years later, basically stepping down for looks like his own corruption. And then you've got the situation with Alan Lafferty, who wrote the damn book on the proper behavior of ethics of elected officials. I mean, he literally wrote a 400-page book, or whatever many pages it is, where he details the right kind of ethical and moral behavior of an elected official, and then goes out and proceeds to break half the things he wrote in the book.
The irony is pretty thick.
It is pretty thick.
Joe, thank you for your expertise this morning.
Sure.
A guy I know you know well is with us on the WV Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line right now, Financial Phil McCoy. Philly, good morning to you.
Happy Thursday, guys. How are you?
Good. One of your clients is here.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I need to get in his ear. I need some help with this announcing gig that I've inherited from him.
The volleyball, Musselman volleyball.
Yeah,
I told you I would tutor you.
Yeah, I need a tutor. I need to learn how to play music.
Well,
ask your daughter.
While I'm on the mic without butchering it. So
Phil, we'll cut a deal right now before I leave the studio.
Okay, good.
I'll agree to provide you some tutelage. You get me closer to retirement.
That's fair. Phil,
hey, Phil, for 8 years I was the court. Side court for the announcer, I'm trying to say, for the Lady Indians in Berkeley Springs High School. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing that.
Phil Spike Maynard was your cousin?
Yeah, I thought we had talked about that before.
I think probably. You're related to everybody in some form or fashion, it seems.
Well, from Southern West Virginia. I can't say that when my friend's up here, but yeah, he was my father's first cousin. And with all the research that Abigail had done, if you remember her coming in there for the Hatfield-McCoy feud, he was the one that kind of passed that on to us. So he clearly had his flaws, but he helped us out in that respect. But
Phil sent you a picture too, Dave.
Yeah, Dave, you're enemy number one.
Why am I?
Well, I wouldn't say enemy, but you in this squirrel debate. I'm telling you, you've got your own meme going around on Facebook.
Yes, but I think I've got the public behind me on this, though, Phil. I think that there's a wave of support behind me now. I've got a pastor who called me a hero. I have a sitting judge who said yay for Dave. I've got the director of the Berkeley Morgan County Health Department who said I did the right thing on the air. So I think the public's behind me on this. And by the way, I don't have a squirrel problem anymore. So
Well, I'm on your side. Don't get me wrong. I'm on your side, but I think you should, because you killed the squirrel, correct? Am I right?
I did. I did kill the squirrel. Now, some people there's probably a group of people out there who said I did the right thing by killing the squirrel, but bashing it with a refrigerator was probably not the right way to do
well,
it.
There's a law that allows you to protect your domain, correct?
Yeah, I think there is. I'll ask Joe about that.
We do have an attorney here.
Yeah.
Castle Doctrine.
But I think you should have left the squirrel corpse out so other squirrels would know, do not come in this house.
Oh, yeah. That's the old mob message there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Philly,
But-
Dow futures are up 190 points. The president is at the NATO summit, and we've seen Asian markets finish up today. European markets are trading up as well, and all three of our major indexes are to the positive. What's going on there?
That's a good question, and I think really what's behind it is maybe an overreaction to yesterday. We had talked last week about how I felt as far as the trade war is concerned, the fact that China currently, now their stock market was up today, but year to date through yesterday, their stock market was down almost 15% year to date. And what most people perceive as our stock markets have struggled, they have slowed, but our S&P is up 5.5%, Dow's up 2%. NASDAQ year to date through open yesterday, NASDAQ was up 13%. So our stock market has done just fine. It's slowed, but it has done just fine. So this, I see it as a war of attrition. So whoever's economy can withstand it the most is going to win. So what happened yesterday is we announced these $200 billion of tariffs. And while China said they would strike back, what has happened is they've been tit for tat. The second Trump would say, hey, we're doing this, they would say, well, we're going to do that. Yesterday, that didn't happen. They said, hey, we're going to retaliate, and then they just kind of let it go. Now, underlying with that was some sort of, with us, we're allowing ZTE Group to do business with American suppliers again.
And on that note, Phil, I've got to stop you because I'm out of time for the news break.
Oh,
Thank you, sir.
You guys have a great day.
You too. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg. It's 9 o'clock.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by TheraWorks Relief.
I'm Stephen Portnoy in Brussels, where the president has reiterated America's commitment to NATO after making the allies quite nervous.
Very unified, very strong, no problem.
That was the president at a news conference here after an emergency session of the NATO allies this morning. Some Europeans said they worried Mr. Trump was so adamant in his demands for increased defense spending that he would pull the U.S. out of the transatlantic alliance. But the president insisted today.
The United States commitment to NATO is very strong, remains very strong.
Mr. Trump leaves the summit declaring victory, saying he got the allies to agree to spend substantially more on defense and at a faster pace. But France's president disputes that, insisting NATO countries will stick to their previously agreed upon 10-year goal.
I'm Vicki Barker, live in London. President Trump's plane has just touched down at Stansted Airport. His UK itinerary includes lunch with Prime Minister Theresa May and tea with the Queen. The welcome dinners at Blenheim Palace, Winston Churchill's birthplace, all far outside central London, where big demonstrations are expected. Tonight, protesters will try to erect speakers close to where the Trumps are staying to broadcast the sound of children crying, a reminder of the children still separated from their parents at the U.S. border. Deborah?
Porn star Stormy Daniels has been released from jail in Columbus, Ohio, after she was arrested at a strip club last night. Police say she broke the law by allowing customers to touch her body while she was on stage. Daniel's lawyer, Michael Avenatti.
I had reason to believe that it was politically motivated. There's no question that these officers were undercover at that strip club. They knew that my client was going to be performing there, and I find this to be a complete waste of resources.
John Schnatter, chairman of Papa John's Pizza, has resigned and apologized for using the N-word during a conference call with a PR company conducting a racial sensitivity training session. CBS's Vladimir Duthier.
He was reportedly trying to convey his antipathy to racism, but allegedly offended multiple people on that call.
The call was aimed at avoiding more controversy after Schnatter blamed protesting NFL players for a drop in profits. The death toll is up to 200 after heavy rains, flooding, and mudslides in Japan. Reporter Gavin Blair.
Dozens are still missing in western Japan as tens of thousands of emergency workers continue to search the affected areas and bring aid to survivors after the worst flooding to hit the nation in 3.5 decades. Temperatures were in the 90s as nearly 250,000 homes struggle to deal with the aftermath of the disaster without running water.
S&P futures are up 16. Dow futures ahead 202. This is CBS News.
To prevent and relieve muscle cramps in your legs and feet, use TheraWorks Relief. Get TheraWorks Relief today at select Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid pharmacies or TheraWorksRelief.com. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter posts your job to over 100 job boards with just one click, and then their smart matching technology finds the right candidates. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. To prevent muscle cramps in your legs and feet, use TheraWorks Relief. This fast-acting foam is clinically proven to relieve leg and foot cramps. Get TheraWorks Relief today at select Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid pharmacies or TheraWorksRelief.com. Ask your pharmacist for TheraWorks Relief.
It's time. Time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Zoom gives you flawless video, crystal clear audio, and instant sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. Both terroristic threats and public intoxication charges for a Florida man. The Journal reports police is saying 50-year-old Matthew Taylor was drunk when he threatened workers at a convenience store in Jefferson County this past weekend, allegedly after trying to leave the place without paying for a hot dog. Once in the patrol car, Taylor allegedly threatened the police as well. West Virginia U.S. Representative Evan Jenkins has announced that the Nicholas County Farmland Protection Board has received a federal grant of more than $100,000 from the National Park Service to protect the Battle of Kessler's Crossroads Civil War battlefield. The grant from the Park Service's American Battlefield Protection Program will be used to acquire a nearly 100-acre portion of that battlefield. Jefferson County Schools announcing that Kerry Mahoney has been named principal of South Jefferson Elementary School. Mahoney began her career in education as a third-grade teacher at South Jefferson 21 years ago. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
We've got a fine stretch of midsummer weather here for the Eastern Panhandle that'll carry us through the weekend, probably into the early parts of next week. Chances for rain increase just a little bit about Monday into Tuesday, but we are dry and sunny here for today and tomorrow and a good part of Saturday. Looking at highs a few degrees cooler than yesterday. We'll be at 84 or so for the afternoon, light northeasterly winds. Overnight with clear skies, the low back to the lower 60s. Tomorrow, sunny skies, southeasterly winds, temperatures up a couple degrees, 86 for the high. And then on Saturday and Sunday, highs in the lower 90s each day with sunshine, but maybe a late day thundershower. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio, WRNR.
With 4 new car dealerships and 4 used car dealerships in 3 states, Parsons is the largest used car and fastest growing new car dealer in the tri-state area. Take Parsons Ford with huge savings on hundreds of new Fords, financing from 0%, Parsons' goal of financing for all, and Parsons' famous above market trade-in allowances that help make Parsons #1 for used cars too. See why so many won't buy anywhere but Parsons Ford in Martinsburg. We became #1 by making you #1 first. Parsons.
Burke, Schultz, Harmon, and Jenkinson. We're accident, injury, and disability lawyers with over 120 years combined local trial experience. When injury or illness has stopped you from working, you may be eligible for Social Security disability. Ron Harmon has been winning disability claims for over a quarter of a century. Don't hire some out-of-state firm. Ron Harmon's in Martinsburg. He will meet with you right here in our office. Get a local lawyer you can trust. Call 304-LAWYERS for a free consultation. 304-LAWYERS or 304-263-0900.
With 4 new car dealerships and 4 used car dealerships in 3 states, Parsons is the largest used car and fastest growing new car dealer in the tri-state area. Take Parsons Ford with huge savings on hundreds of new Fords, financing from 0%, Parsons' goal of financing for all, and Parsons' famous above market trade-in allowances that help make Parsons #1 for used cars too. See why so many won't buy anywhere but Parsons Ford in Martinsburg. We became #1 by making you #1 first. Parsons.
It's the song that got us banned from YouTube, Dave.
Yeah, what are we going to do about that?
I got to go back and edit it out, so it just takes a little bit of my time.
I still don't get. I don't get that.
I don't want to change the song because it fits. You know, we want the airwaves.
It works. Still, you know, it's nice having the YouTube thing, but if we,
it's oppression.
It's still a radio show.
Rob here along with David Welch.
We want the airwaves.
And our intern, Savon Hunter. Savon, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Our wonderful producer is Sherry Dieter Davis, and this segment of the program is brought to you by the Berkeley County Health Department, the BCHD, offering public, clinical, and environmental services at 122 Waverly Court in Martinsburg. Savon graduated from Martinsburg High School last year, and the Deputy Superintendent of Schools is with us right now, and Don Dellinger. And Donnie, right here we have a product of Berkeley County Schools education system. And let me just say, you guys hit it out of the park with this graduate because she's been our intern for a month and a half, maybe.
Oh, we love her.
And
We absolutely love her.
We can't do without her now. I don't know what I'm going to do when she goes back to college. I'm thinking of convincing her that a college degree is overrated, that working here for free with Rob and Dave is really the way to go about life.
Savon, we need to talk.
She's kind of been
my mom would approve of that, Rob.
Savon, we don't have a question of the day today, do we?
No, we don't.
It's got to be about the Supreme Court resignation.
Yeah.
How many justices ultimately do you think will resign, or we have to word this the right way, how many justices ultimately will not continue on the court after this investigation? What's the best way to word
I
this?
think you're close. How many of the 5 state Supreme Court justices will either resign or be impeached?
There you go. That's it. That's our question, Savon.
I got it.
And your choices are?
And you have to put the 5 in there. How many of the 5? So that people know the answer could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Obviously, we already know of 1.
One's resigned, one's been indicted.
Mm-hmm.
None have been impeached.
Right. So you could say of the 4 remaining state Supreme Court justices, because one's already announced he's resigning. So of the 4 remaining, would that be the fair way to ask that question?
The Savon's been typing furiously in there, or keyboarding.
I trust
they call it keyboarding now.
Just remember, Savon, when you come up with the wording for that, that one's already resigned, Menace Ketchum is out. So obviously one, we have at least one. So but I think we're trying to get to the other 4.
I put how many of the 4 remaining Supreme Court justices will resign or be impeached?
Fair. Good question.
Yep, like it.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
See what I mean about Savon, Don?
Yeah.
I mean, Dave and I babbled for 2 minutes, and she reduced it to like a 12-word sentence.
Self-initiative.
She's very good. Now, do you take credit as the school board for a product like Savon? I mean, is that something that, does her family play a role in this, or do you just, when someone does well like that, or David Avella, we were talking about him off the air, do you just say, hey, there it is, we have a really boss school district here?
Well, I think a lot contributes to her family. They were there and supported right from the start.
They took up a whole bleacher section, her family, at graduation. I'm sure.
One of the things when we used to do graduation, that's one of the things I made sure that as I talked to the graduates for the last time is to make sure that they thanked all their family and friends that were there because they helped support them to get them to that point. But also, coming from Martinsburg High School, as with all of our schools, I'm sure she had some outstanding teachers who assisted her along the way. And
hey, Savon, I have a question for you. When you have a family as big as yours, you've got 6 older sisters, your parents, probably grandparents, and cousins, and who knows. How do you get tickets for all of them for your graduation?
Our graduation was outside, so you didn't need tickets.
Oh, so you just come early then, right?
Yes, they had like a whole section to themselves.
Oh, okay. I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
Don, this is a teachable moment, what we have going on in the state right now. History is being made as we sit here with the resignation of a Supreme Court justice at the state level and the indictment of another.
I was a math teacher, but I'm 3 classes, 9 hours shy of having a comprehensive teaching degree in social studies. I just didn't go on to finish that one out. But this moment is what you hope that, if we were in school at this point in time, you would hope that in your civics classes and your social studies classes that there would be some discussion about what's going on. And hopefully we have summer school going right now, and hopefully that's part of the discussion in our summer school classes is that this is a historical moment in this state.
Do we have the curriculum flexibility in the classroom for teachers? Let's say this happened in the middle of October. Do they have the flexibility in their plan to say, all right, what we were supposed to do today is going to wait. Here's what we're talking about today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are standards that teachers have to cover, but there are teachable moments, and there are teachable moments in not just in social studies and but also in all your subject areas. And the big one I can think of is. Last year at this time, one of the things that we were planning for was an eclipse, and to make that a teachable moment. And so there's certainly time to do that.
And then as the school year went along, you had another teachable moment with and I'm not being a smart aleck here, but with the teachers'
with the work
walkout,
stoppage,
the work stoppage strike, whatever we call it that day.
Absolutely.
Right.
And, and along lines like with the work stoppage, the one of the things that we talked to our principals about, and then they went back and relayed it to the teachers is that, you can't politicize it. You can't, but you can talk. You can certainly talk about the different things that come from that, and some of the whys, but don't say I want you to go out and support this. And,
I know you're obviously hoping there won't be, but in any of your summer discussions, are you accounting for the possibility of another teacher strike for the 2018-2019 school year?
Well, it's not something that I will say that we are planning for, but we have discussed that we think that certainly with PEIA and where the committee with PEIA is headed, that there certainly could be some discussion come next legislative session or maybe even before about where we're headed with that. So again, we're not formalizing any plans. Although I will tell you that on Tuesday I got back in the office. I had been out for a while, and when I got back in the office, I was putting my files, my personal files that I keep together of things that happened last year, and I store those away and save those. And one of the things I brought out was this huge folder that was probably about 3 inches thick on everything that that all the messages we sent out and calendar information about the work stoppage. I put that in a special place so that if it needed as a reference, it's there.
So not planning for it, but prepared for it.
Prepare for it.
Yeah, there's like 3 boxes on a desk, right? The in box, the out box, and then there's the too hard box. Put that in the too hard box.
Absolutely.
The very difficult box, right. Don Dellinger is Deputy Superintendent of Schools in Berkeley County. He's our guest here on the program. If you have a question for Don, 304-263-6540 or 304-263-6586 would be our telephone numbers. Summer, we're about halfway through summer break here. First day of school is when in August?
For students, our students are back on Monday the 20th of August, and the teachers come back on the 15th, I believe it is, Wednesday the 15th.
When do you...
So they don't really get 3 months off like people say. I hear that all. Oh, your teacher gets 3 months off, gets all. So they really don't get 3 months.
They don't
get about 2, I guess,
about
right?
2 months, yes.
Yeah. How many new teachers will you be hiring this year? Do you know yet?
We're probably going to be in the area of about 200.
New teachers?
New teachers, yes.
Is that high or low?
Well, how do we even...
That's high.
How do you even go about doing that? That sounds like an impossible task.
And that's actually one of the discussions that we were just having yesterday and talking about recruiting. Of course, our recruiting has been ongoing for a while, but for instance, to be quite honest with you, the work stoppage has affected us. I don't know how many people are aware, but when the work stoppage was going on, actually Washington County had people coming into this area and passing out information about coming to work for Berkeley County schools.
I was not aware of that.
I'm sorry, Washington County
That's
schools.
what you call in-your-face competition.
Absolutely, and then
and why not? It's a 20-minute drive.
And then there were, of course, we're such sandwiched in between Maryland and Virginia, and even Pennsylvania being close that and with PEI still up in the some people have already looked elsewhere, and
so teachers went on strike for a 5% raise. They got it, and some of them won't even benefit from it because they've left.
Yeah, absolutely. But typically, I mean, we're always around about 170, 100 to 80. So it's a little high, but it's not extreme.
So I would imagine that when you fall short of that, if you fall short of that, those substitute teachers become very important.
Absolutely,
that we have in the community.
And it's not necessarily the number. And again, because of retirements and when you hire, we try to hire as many in-state teachers and people close as we can, but we do hire a lot from Pennsylvania. Jobs a little bit harder to find in Pennsylvania, but what happens is they'll come and work in Berkeley County for 3 to 5 years, and then an opening comes open back around their home, and they want to go back. I would say that we lose a large number that way, to where they want to be back in their home area, and once a job comes open, they have that opportunity, that they take that opportunity. What's happening is, and this isn't just Berkeley County, but it's nationally, is there's a shortage of teachers out there. I can remember when I first
young people not going into the profession.
Absolutely, and I can remember when I first went into the central office. I knew what it was like to hire a math teacher at a high school, and your applicants, and I knew what it was like. Back then, about the only one that you could say was social studies, and told students that if your social studies degree, you're going to start in special education, and then when something comes open, you'll move over, because there was an abundance of social studies teachers at the secondary level. That's even changing. That abundance is not there. But elementary is the big one. I can remember going in and looking at a position at an elementary school. You can go online and look at the applicants, and there may be 50 plus applicants for one position at an elementary school. And I'm thinking, my golly, how does the principal sit down and vet and decide who they're going to interview and everything like that? That's down to where you're looking at, maybe 10, but we have some that, you're only 5 or 6 names are on that list. So that pool has dwindled a good bit.
What grade level is your most glaring weakness of teachers right now?
I don't necessarily think it's grade level as it is subject area, math.
Really?
Math is a big one right now. We have lost some math teachers this year, and it's getting math teachers in is very tough.
And just think of the logic here. Let's say you're a college student, young person, 18 to 22 years old. You're thinking about what you want to do, and let's say you're really good at one of the STEM subjects, math being one of those. With all of the jobs that are out there in technology these days that pay really, really well upon graduation, it's going to be tough for a math whiz to say, I think I'm going to go work for $38,000 a year and put up with kids all day, or I could go out and start at $80,000 working for Google or Apple or someone.
Just a quick story on that. Now my daughter graduated from high school in 2004, so this is a while back. But she's a math teacher, or was a math teacher, and she's now an administrator. But we were at a wedding with the family, and we were sitting at a table with 2 of the cousins, and they said, what do you want to do? What are you thinking about? What are you going to study? And she said, I want to go into math. I want to be a math teacher. And they said, so did we. But we're engineers right now.
Yeah.
And they got into it and found out that certainly the salary was a big deal.
And more so today than probably ever before. The demand for those kinds of brainy kids going into those, there's just a tremendous demand for it.
And I think that we talked about the work stoppage in West Virginia, but we saw how it spread across the country.
Oh yeah,
and I think that is one of the issues. We talked about here in Berkeley County and talked about on this show is that one of the things that we thought was important during that time is that we wanted to make sure that that our teachers had the salary and benefits, so that we could not only attract quality teachers to Berkeley County, but to keep the teachers that we have in Berkeley County, and I think that's very, very important, and I think that's becoming important nationally that we need to look at this.
Isn't it true that you mentioned Pennsylvania, and I used to live in Pennsylvania as Rob did, and I know I have family members and friends, young people who have gotten out of college wanting to be teachers and couldn't find a job there. Isn't the reason because they pay their teachers so darn well in Pennsylvania that teachers flock to the state and then won't leave those positions? Because they are highly paid in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Salary-wise, Pennsylvania ranks very well. Nationally, I had an opportunity to play golf with a gentleman from. He was their director of maintenance in a school district in Pennsylvania. Of course, Pennsylvania is a whole lot different than West Virginia when it comes to funding their school.
It's like upside down different.
So, like in Pennsylvania, there's not a county school district. In Pennsylvania, it's townships, and
and you pay your school tax directly. I remember living in Beaver, Pennsylvania, my wife's hometown, for several years. I remember taking my school check down to the school administration office and handing it to them.
And they talk about their millage rate. And this gentleman is in a district, and talk to him. And they pay fairly well, but the problem is the districts around him their millage rate's a little bit higher. So they have the problem that we're talking about, but sort of on a different level. They're trying to compete with another township in their own county, and the millage wise. So
well, and you've bring up a really interesting point about that town-to-town situation where you now have towns competing against each other for teachers, and property values tend to follow where the best school districts are. So it becomes like a dog chasing its tail sort of thing. As the school district's taxes are higher and the better teachers go there, they're making more money, whatever, the property values follow, and that affects the communities around it, so they compete and they raise taxes, and before you know, you're in a situation where your taxes have gone up enough that you're sitting back and going, we got to move out of this district, we can't afford the taxes anymore.
Yeah, so where I lived in Beaver, there's 2 towns that border Beaver that you can actually walk to. They're that close. We're not talking about getting in a car and driving like to Hagerstown or Winchester. These are towns that you can take a nice stroll and walk to all 3 towns. Mm-hmm. All 3 have a high school. All 3 have different levels of millage rates. Beaver would be the nice one, right? Mm-hmm. But right next door to it, Rochester, not so nice. One of those old river towns that's kind of died. So their high school's not quite as nice. The teachers don't get paid quite as much. And all of those Rochester teachers are just dying to come over to Beaver and teach because they're going to get a $10,000 raise and not have to commute any further than they are now.
We have a local levy, Don, when it comes to subsidizing teacher salaries here. And we've talked to Dale Lee, and he has explained to us numerous times that he's not in favor of any type of pay that would favor one part of the state over another. But if a local community wants to adopt some type of local levy and fully fund it, that's certainly up to them. We have that. It provides a little boost to the salaries that the state says the minimums would be, but it still doesn't allow you to compete with, say, Loudoun County or with Washington County.
No, we've talked about this before also, but we're very fortunate that this community supports our education system the way we do, and our excess levy is very, very important to us. We're in a neighborhood, I'm going to estimate, but I think we're in a neighborhood somewhere. It had fallen drastically, and now it's starting to come back up with the housing values rising and the assessment values rising, and so we're up to about we take in about $31 million off that excess levy, and part of it goes to support teacher salaries, but it also supports a lot of the programs that we run. Some athletics, some of our band, especially with our band and fine arts, just a variety of things that money goes to.
So we do have locality pay in a way in the Eastern Panhandle. Is that right? Because our teachers do, because of the local levy, they get paid more than, let's say, someone down in the southern part of the state.
Well,
that was a question, by the way.
Yes, the answer, I guess, is yes. That our salary could be, and our salary is very competitive when it comes statewide. But then you take a look at a county like Doddridge County, and you've got all the money from the fracking and the gas and everything there. They're not paying, but their teachers are getting paid very well. They're also there's some other competitive advantages other places across the state, but you do have that option to help increase salaries above the state minimum.
Okay.
Don, can you stay in another segment?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you, Don Dellinger, our guest deputy superintendent of schools in Berkeley County. This past segment brought to you by Bechtel Jewelers, West Virginia's largest Pandora retailer. Rudy live in South Inwood, next to Viva Mexico. If you have a question for Don, 304-263-6540 or 304-263-6586.
Come in now for the summer clearance event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Martinsburg, where you can get up to $11,250 in total savings on a 2018 Ram Bighorn. Pay just $229 a month with $3,499 down. How about a 2019 Jeep Cherokee for only $189 a month with $3,499 down and up to $4,000 cash back? Get $3,250 off a 2018 Dodge Challenger or Charger with payments as low as $179 per month. Going green? Check out the 2018 Hybrid Pacifica with a $7,500 federal tax credit. These savings and more are available at the summer clearance event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram on Kelly Island Road or online at millerschryslerjeep.com, your Chrysler certified pre-owned dealer. All payments based on approved credit, taxes, tags, and processing fees extra. See dealer for details. Since 1877, Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies have proudly supported our local community. Farmers and Mechanics has the insurance products to meet your needs, including home, auto, farm, dwelling fire, business owners, and umbrella coverage. Please contact your local independent agency for a review of your insurance needs and ask for a policy from the company that knows you best. Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies, just off Edwin Miller Boulevard on Administrative Drive in Martinsburg. FMIWV.com.
The Wellness Center at Berkeley Medical Center introduces a healthy way of life. It's not just another diet, but a weight management program developed by the Wellness Center that includes metabolic testing, a simple 10-minute breathing test that determines how many calories your body actually needs, followed by working one-on-one with a health coach to develop a personalized mix of exercise and nutrition to tip the scales in your favor towards successful weight loss. A lifetime of good health awaits at the Wellness Center. For more info, call 304-264-1232.
She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah.
This segment of the show brought to you this morning by the Brown Funeral Homes and Cremations. Robert Fields and Sons, a family-owned full-service funeral home proudly serving our area since 1880. Don Dellinger is our guest here on the program, and he is the Deputy Superintendent of Schools in Berkeley County. So we
and a really nice guy too.
Fabulous fellow.
Yeah.
We need about another 100 positions filled before we start the school year.
Well, at our one of our staff meetings the other day, that's what we were talking. The question was, how many vacancies do we still have? And we're still trying to fill about 100 positions. Now, those have been posted. We have people that have applied for them. So our principals right now are working on the interviewing, and they're either with faculty senate rules and stuff now, the principals and faculty committee from the faculty senate are interviewing, and then they'll be making the recommendations to the superintendent and then to the board. So it's just a process right now, going through and vetting the candidates and interviewing the candidates and making their selections.
I know historically, to become a teacher at a public school in West Virginia, you needed to have all of the teaching credentials and all of the proper education. A couple of years ago, I remember there was some kind of law passed that allowed school districts to more or less, and I'm using my words, not official words here, but to use equivalent experience and bring someone in as a teacher if there was a particular need. Are you relying upon that more and more to hire teachers, or not so much?
I wouldn't say that we're relying upon it, but we certainly have individuals who are looking at a change of career, and we work with them to get them certified in whatever particular area that they're interested in becoming, certified in to teach. Actually, each the last 3 springs, I think, we've actually done a job fair for professional and for service, but part of that professional is that if you're looking for a change in a career and you're thinking about becoming an educator, and again, there's a process they have to go through to become fully certified. But certainly we are working with them and trying to fill those positions.
What is that certification process like? Is it going back to a college for a year?
It involves working through, I guess, the teaching methods. There's some online programs to take there.
Okay.
And
because you can know your subject, but you might not know how to get in front of a classroom and actually teach it.
Absolutely. You could be a whiz in math and know math forwards and backwards. It's a whole lot different than standing in front of those students and working with the students to learn that subject matter. Again, the most important people in our school system are our teachers, and because every day that's what they do. They are in front of the students, and it's a skill. It's not it's a skill and that teachers have, and it's hard work.
Now, I know some substitute teachers who are kept quite busy in the school district. I mean, there's some of them I know that basically go to work every day somewhere, and they get a call.
Right.
How many substitute teachers are there in Berkeley County, and what do you need to do to become a substitute teacher?
Well, most substitutes that are on our sub list are also probably on Jefferson County's sub list. They may be on Washington County's sub list.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's not like you have a pool of subs that's specific to
I
your
see,
county.
okay.
Yeah. So when I
But
tell
you have to be registered with, regardless of whether they,
Right.
otherwise they might be, other places they might be registered. They're on your registry as well.
Absolutely. They have to be board approved as a substitute.
And you have to have a college degree, I think.
They have to meet all the requirements. Now, you could have a college degree, not have a teaching certification, and there's a program that you can take. And again, it's an online program. Well, some of them are online, some that you can set through and become certified to sub. And it also involves spending some observation times. But before you actually go into a classroom on your own, it involves spending observation times at various programmatic levels. But yeah, so when I tell you we have over 400 subs, it sounds like a lot, but those subs are all, a lot of them would probably be on the Jefferson County.
And a sub, when they're called, can say, no, I'm not available today. So it's not automatic that they're available.
Absolutely.
Now, let's say you're on that sub list. Are you on that sub list by particular topics like math or social science or physical education, or is a sub sort of ambidextrous? They can go anywhere.
Well, they can actually sub in any content.
Because if I were a sub, you'd never want to put me in a math class. I can guarantee you.
I barely want to put him in as a talk show host.
We do. Our principals do have a list of the subs that are available, and they list the subjects that the subs are. They list the subjects that they feel that they're capable of working with. Now, if it's a 1 day, 2 day sub, that a teacher's out sick or whatever, then you could sub in a math class. There would be lesson plans.
Well, the kids would have a good time. There's no doubt about that.
But if we're looking at something that may be a little bit more long term, then certainly you're going to go take a look at that list and say, okay, I need a math teacher, who's...
For example, if someone's out because of a pregnancy or something like that.
Or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Don, we hear this about 700 non-qualified teachers in the state who are in charge of classrooms. What does that mean, and is that a serious problem?
Well, I think it's an issue. Now,
what's a non-qualified teacher?
But a non-qualified teacher, for instance, we have what we call permanent subs. So they'll come up, and every year it ends up like there will come a point in time where there may be 20 positions that we absolutely just can't find a certified teacher for that. And you may be a science teacher, and if you're a science teacher and you have a little bit of a math background, then we say, okay, would you be interested in being sending in this math class? That would be an example of a non-certified certified teacher, but may not be a certified math teacher.
Did I say non-qualified, by the way? Yeah, we meant non-certified.
Yeah, so that would be an example of where you would have. We also have teachers that have gone through the process of becoming a substitute. They get enrolled in a program to become a certified teacher. And as long as they are working towards that, and I think it's 6 hours a year, I think it's still 6 hours a year, then they can keep that position as long as they're working towards that. That would also be a non-certified. A lot of times you find that actually in special ed, special ed teachers are difficult to find. So you may have a social studies teacher who's a certified social studies teacher but not certified special ed, teaching a special needs class, and they like it. And what they do is they get involved. They get in a program. They work towards their hours to become certified. There's also the state changed this a few years ago. If you're a certified teacher, so you could be a certified math teacher, and let's say you want to become a family and consumer science teacher. If you can pass the praxis test for family and consumer science, then you can be certified in family and consumer science. So if I have a teaching certification in math, and I want to teach other subjects, then as long as I can pass the praxis in those subjects, then I'm
all right.
certified.
May I ask, what is family and consumer science?
Home ec.
Gotcha.
Sounds
The old
better.
home ec.
Thank you for talking my language.
That's part of the strike settlement, Dave. The home ec teacher is no longer going to be known as home ec.
I
teacher.
get it. Yeah.
It's been family and consumer science for quite a while, and also shop.
Are you telling me I'm behind?
Shop long ago became technology education. Now
Tech ed, yeah.
Tech ed.
Because when I was going to school, you were going to school. It was home ec and shop, and all the boys had to take shop, and all the girls had to take home ec.
Yeah.
When I was in ninth grade, we all took home ec, and we learned how to sew. I made an apron, and I remember cooking eggs and spaghetti, which they didn't have to teach me how to cook spaghetti. I kind of had a head start in that class right there. And then in wood shop, we made...
yeah, that was unfair. You could have taught that class.
I was a ringer.
Yeah.
We made a box and a clock, and I can't tell you how that's coming to handy as time has gone by, Don. But back to the non-certified teacher situation. You said you believe it's an issue. Why do you believe it's an issue?
I think that in a math class, and I'm going to specifically use math. In a math class, you want somebody who is certified to teach math. Now, we have in some of our math classes where we've had the non-certified teachers, they're good teachers. They have the math background, and they can teach that subject. So if Algebra 1. Let's talk about Algebra 1 as a ninth grader. I think that most good teachers can go in and they can teach. They've probably had Algebra 1. Not everybody. Dave would be one of these, but not everyone could teach that Algebra 1 to the depth that you would like to see it taught at. Now, could they teach can they teach to the standards? Yeah, they can teach to the standards, but to give that depth that you need, that's where I think it becomes an issue at.
Is that an issue in Berkeley County schools right now?
But what we do to try to make that a non-issue is that we have we call them academic coaches who will go in and work with those teachers, specifically work with them. And last year we had what we called a math cohort to work with teachers who needed that extra assistance and who may need help with the lesson plans and various things, in particular to math. So yeah, we do things to try to help those teachers out. I'm thinking of one young man that we had a couple years ago, and we needed a math teacher, and he was a graduate of that school. They knew that he was a teacher. He was a good teacher. And he had taught some special ed, and actually the special ed he taught, he'd worked with some math students, and they knew that he could teach that, and by providing him with additional support and actually tying him in with some of the teachers there in the building, he did a good job with the students.
Let me tell you how in the business world it would work if there was a particular critical demand for a particular job in that business organization. Let's say in this particular business they had a whole bunch of people who did accounting, and there was no problem with hiring accountants, but they might have a real demand, a real critical need for someone in an IT position. You know what they would do? They would pay the IT person more money because they really need to go out and recruit the right people. But in the school system, you can't go out and pay a math teacher more than a social studies teacher, can you?
Well,
or can you?
You can.
Really?
I don't think that there's any policy preventing you from doing that.
Okay, I was assuming that they were all on one standard pay scale.
But I think that that becomes a little bit of an issue.
Because it's not illogical, I wouldn't think.
No.
I just say, okay, we really need math teachers here in Berkeley County. So what we're going to do is we're going to start math teachers out at $60,000. We're just going to put the word out there. If you want to be a math teacher and make good money right out of college, this is the place to come.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
As a former principal, I would sometimes wonder how that would work out with the.
I'm kind of being tongue-in-cheek, but in a way, I'm being logical too.
With the culture and climate in your building that way.
Yeah. You need a good spirit decor. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Donnie, thank you very much for your time today,
Thank
sir.
you. Appreciate it.
Much appreciated.
Enjoy it.
Good stuff. And do you have full confidence you'll be able to hire the number of teachers that you need to start the school year, or do you think you may be a little short?
By the time by the time we have our new teacher orientation, we'll have the majority, 98%, 99% of those positions filled, and we'll have people lined up to come in for the other positions. So yeah, we'll be fine. Again, there'll certainly be some permanent subs, and but they'll be certified to teach, and they may just not be certified in that particular area, and we'll provide the support they need.
August 20, first day of school.
August 20th. Yes.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Don Dellinger, Deputy Superintendent of Schools on Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave at 9:42. For an Allstate agent, providing protection that fits your life is something they take, well, personally. Allstate agents are committed to learning about your needs and personalizing protection to meet them. From bundling your auto, home, and life insurance with ease, to evaluating optional coverage based on your protection needs, your Allstate agent can build an insurance proposal that fits your life. Are you in good hands? Contact Martinsburg Allstate agent Gary Kelly today for a free quote at 304-263-4596. Life insurance offered through Allstate Life Insurance Company and Allstate Assurance Company, Northbrook, Illinois, and American Heritage Life Insurance Company, Jacksonville, Florida.
I'm Joe Ferretti of Ferretti Law Office. The most common question I hear from people injured in an automobile wreck or because someone else was at fault is, can their insurance company do that? If you call Ferretti Law Office at 264-8505, I will answer that question and other questions you have for free. Get educated and get ready to fight back. Call 264-8505 to protect your rights and get the compensation you deserve. Put my 31 years of personal injury and trial experience to work for you. At Ferretti Law Office, we're here to help.
What words come to mind when you think of Honda? Reliable should be one. Fun, that's a good one. But there is one word that sums up every Honda. Quality. Because Honda was KBB.com's 2018 best overall brand. So whether you choose the sizzling Civic, acclaimed Accord, or sporty CRV, you know you're getting quality that's unmatched.
Miller Honda, south of Winchester, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. www.mymillerhonda.com.
Based on 2018 Brand Image Awards from Kelley Blue Book. Visit kbb.com for more information.
Kids, what's the rule about running in the house?
Always run hard out of the box.
That's not what I said.
She's running third. Here comes the play at the plate. Uh-oh.
Let's clean that up before Mom gets home.
Exciting baseball action and quality family time? There's a place for that. Nationals Park. Get more bang for your buck this baseball season with deals on tickets and concessions for the whole family. See you at Nationals Park, your place to run wild. Buy your tickets today at nationals.com.
This segment of the show brought to you this morning by L.A. Roberts, committed to excellence in quality design and craftsmanship in historic downtown Martinsburg. Obviously a very busy day today with the resignation yesterday of Justice Menace Ketchum and the convening today of the House Judiciary Committee looking into, among others, Justice Al Lawfrey, who's already under federal indictment, potentially looking at all of the Supreme Court justices in West Virginia. There are 5 total, so 3 others. Indeed, you heard Delegate Riley Moore, a member of the Judiciary Committee earlier this morning, saying that they will be looking at all 5.
Yeah, playing out like a soap opera right here in West Virginia. I suspect we're going to spend a lot more mornings talking about what, let's admit it, is a pretty darn unfortunate topic. But it is going on. We have to cover it. And we're trying to get as much insight as possible. If you haven't covered it or if you've missed the earlier part of the show, Justice Menace Ketchum resigned with a personal handwritten note to the governor yesterday. He's gone, and a lot of suspicion around, Rob, that there's something going on that we just don't know about yet to have forced him out that quickly.
That's at the state Supreme Court level. Obviously, a lot of attention still on the federal Supreme Court level, too, with the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh as potentially the next U.S. Supreme Court Justice. We've asked from Project 21, a Black Leadership Network, Christopher Arps. He's a member of the Project 21 National Advisory Council and a managing partner with the digital media and political consulting firm Capital Consulting Group, LLC. He's also the co-founder of MoveOnUp.org, a 43-state network of conservative and moderate Black Americans. He joins us on the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line. Christopher, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Boy, I thought we had drama here in Missouri with our governor.
Yeah, you did. That was real drama, but I think we might be going one up on you here.
So I'm eagerly looking forward to hearing about it from St. Louis.
Yes, Christopher, give us your opinion on the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court.
Well, I'm not an attorney. But I am very pleased with the pick of Judge Kavanaugh. It seems that all of the legal experts and all of the opinions that agree with mine, the conservative bent, say that he will be a good fit for the court, and that this is a pick that is upholding one of President Trump's campaign promises to pick a conservative jurist for the Supreme Court.
Are you a supporter of President Trump?
I was not a supporter of President Trump during the primaries. I was actually on the Ted Cruz campaign. I worked in Iowa and South Carolina and here in Missouri. So I was not a big fan of the president. My vote for him took place, or my decision to vote for him took place in the ballot booth after going through all the other races and coming back to that first. But one of the reasons that I did go ahead and vote for him was the importance of the Supreme Court. And I knew that if Hillary Clinton became president, that she would have a couple of picks like the president has, and in a generation we would recognize the United States of America.
Why do you think that the appointment of Brett Kavanaugh is important to the Supreme Court at this time?
I think it's just important because, we see that the left has taken over academia, has taken over culture, has taken over sports, and we know that there are a lot of impressionable people, young people that are being indoctrinated from kindergarten all the way up through college with a secular humanist liberal perspective. And I'm glad that the Supreme Court, if it leans conservative, and it looks like the president, if he gets another term, the court could actually be 7-2, that I think it's a check and balance on the culture to keep it from just drifting so leftward that the United States is basically Sodom and Gomorrah.
I'm interested, and this is Dave, by the way, Christopher. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem.
Your
Thanks.
organization sounds very, very interesting, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that in the time that we have. I'm interested in your thoughts, and I actually put this question to Senator Capito when we had her on yesterday as well. What are your thoughts on the opposition to to Judge Kavanaugh? It seems to be really intense to me. Is the opposition movement to his nomination, is that going to energize the Democratic base this fall, or is it going to turn off centrist independent voters? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's going to do a little bit of both, in fact. I think the liberals, progressives, they see that if Judge Kavanaugh is confirmed to the Supreme Court, that there will be a solid 5-4 majority. And I think one thing that is the liberals and the women's organization, their holy grail, is abortion. And I think that they are just fearful of abortion being overturned, and so they're going to throw everything at the kitchen sink to try to derail this nomination, even though they don't have the votes. And the only thing that's going to stop this nomination at this point is either the president pulling the nomination, the judge pulling it himself, or them finding some type of scandal in his closet.
Senator Capito also told us yesterday that unless the Republicans can get to 50 votes, there will be no Democrats that will come over and support this nomination. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I don't agree with that. I mean, we have 10 Democrats that are in red states that Trump won overwhelmingly. One of them here is Missouri. Our Senator McCaskill is one of the most vulnerable senators up for re-election. Now, our senator casts herself as a moderate, but if you look at her vote, she votes 90% plus with Barack Obama and with the liberals. So I think that's one vote they're not, the Republicans are not going to get. I think Blair is going to stay with the party line. But you have these senators in West Virginia and Montana and Wisconsin, I think it is, that are very vulnerable, and 3 of them did vote for Gorsuch. So I would not be surprised that I think all of the Republicans, first of all, are going to stick together, and I wouldn't be surprised if 3, 4, 5 maybe Democrats come across.
So you're confident then that Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, those are the 3 Republicans that I think that the administration worries most about in the nomination. You think they'll be there at the end?
Rand Paul, I haven't heard any talk of him not being there, but I have heard talk of Susan Collins and Murkowski where they have said, and this was yesterday, where they felt reassured from comments that Kavanaugh made that he felt that abortion was precedent, and that was his position. So they were confident about that. So I think that they will be with him. I think the two wild cards myself are Senators Flake of Arizona and Corker in Tennessee. They're retiring. They are not on the best terms with the president. And you saw Senator Flake yesterday make a move in the Senate to get what he wanted. I think it was to filibuster some judges or something like that. Forgot all the details. But I could see those two sticking a monkey wrench in the process for the president.
Part of the optics of a Supreme Court nomination, of course, is that once you get past the initial announcement, and then he goes around and he meets all the senators personally. At some point in time, he goes front and center in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee for hearings. And I suspect that this nominee is going to come across as really well qualified to the American public once it's all said and done. He's going to take some tough questions. He's going to get grilled, especially by the Democratic side, as he should, by the way. But I have a feeling he's going to handle himself with great aplomb and dignity, and as a very knowledgeable and fair person.
I do too, and I think that the optics of it will be very pleasing. He's a 53-year-old man, but he looks about 10 years younger. He's got a baby face. He has two relatively young children and a wife that are going to be behind him. And I think that, we've seen several Supreme Court nominations over the last few years, and I'm 52, and I've seen, many since Ronald Reagan. I think after Bork and Thomas, I think there's a cookie-cutter way that you go through these nominations where you say that you're going to stay with President, you don't answer too many hypothetical questions, and you stick with the law. And I think that will get you through even in these most partisan of times.
Do you think it's fair to say, speaking of partisan, I'm wondering, let's say Hillary Clinton had won the presidency and she would have nominated a completely different justice to this position than President Trump has. Do you think that the opposition on the right would be just as full of vitriol and intensity as the one on the left now is?
Well, to be honest, I hope that the campaign against a leftward-leaning judge would be intense, but I would hope that it would not be personal and look into digging up dirt. I mean, these Supreme Court nominations, these justiceships, if that's a word, are very important because these folks have lifetime tenure. And, you look at Donald Trump's president right now, he's looking to pick people, as he said, that are going to be on for 40 or 45 years. That's a couple of generations. So these court cases are very important. And if you look through American history, from slavery on down to abortion to civil rights, a lot of those issues have been settled by the court.
If there is any issue that could trip Brett Kavanaugh up in the hearings, whether it be his writing as it relates to sitting presidents shouldn't be under investigation, or some opinion he's given on Roe v. Wade, or some involvement he might have had in the Obamacare hearing case a couple of years ago. Is there any of those that might trip him up if he had to pick or even the well, that would be the Russian connection, the presidential immunity, I guess, from having anything like that go on. What trips him up here? Anything worry you as a conservative leader? Does anything worry you?
Anything less than a personal scandal or a professional scandal, I think he's in. I think the battle lines and the votes have really already been drawn on this nomination. The Democrats say that they're not going to vote for this nomination. You have 10 very vulnerable Democrats, 5 that are very vulnerable, 3 that have already voted for the last Supreme Court justice. So I think you're looking at that little narrow band of keeping your own base and trying to get 2 or 3 more Democrats who are very vulnerable to come over is where the real fight is going to be.
I find it refreshing to have an African-American leader such as yourself that is a conservative. Not that I'm suggesting that those who aren't conservatives aren't my dear friends and people I respect, because that's certainly true as well. But the Black Leadership Network, Project 21, that you're a part of, what is it, and why are you fighting so hard for conservative values, in this case, the nomination for Brett Kavanaugh?
And Christopher, I'll ask you to sum that up in less than a minute because I have a final commercial break I need to get to.
Got it. Well, Project 21 is a national organization that was started after the Rodney King verdict in L.A. back in '92. And it's an amalgamation of black conservative leaders who write articles and appear on radio shows like yours and on TV, giving another perspective to the traditional African-American liberal viewpoint. And I think that's very important when it comes to the future, because we see that the African-American community is in a very dire strait right now. And I think that direction needs to change, and there needs to be leaders out there pointing that out.
Christopher, thank you so much. Much appreciated, sir.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Christopher Arps from Project 21 at 9:58. Final segment of the show. The last thoughts coming up right after this. Downtown Martinsburg is the place to be for the Fridays at 5 Summer Concert Series from June 1st through August 31st. Enjoy great music and fun with well-known musicians, bands, and Martinsburg artists that'll liven up your spirits at the town square. Concerts begin at 5 p.m. and usually last until 7. Enjoy great music while visiting Martinsburg's Farmers Market, housed on East King Street, where you're able to enjoy fresh fruits and veggies, chicken and pork, and a lot more. Pets are allowed in the square during the concerts, provided they're on a 6-foot leash or less. For the full concert Summer Series lineup, go to MainStreetMartinsburg.com.
Smith-Nadenbush is an independent insurance agency. You see, there's an important difference between Smith-Nadenbush and agents who work just for one company. Working for one company, they can only sell the products of that company. On the other hand, Smith-Nadenbush can design a program just for you, your family, or your business, and at the right cost. Smith-Nadenbush, Martinsburg, Charlestown, and Berkeley Springs.
That'll wrap it up for today's program. Thank you, Savon, and also thank you, Sherry. Dave, you're not here tomorrow.
I will be in Minnesota tomorrow.
And then I'm not here next week, so...
I'll miss you so much.
But
I'll take care of the show, I promise. Savon and I'll take care of it.
Look after him, Savon. Glenn Beck Show's coming up next. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg. Talk to you again in 22 short hours.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by TheraWorks Relief.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. President Trump says he got what he wanted during